next week, Monday, I have a special jacket being made for Monday. Number one.
We talked about this.
Are fucking sick. But anyway, I'm going to curse. I'm going to do one resolution at a time, not to grab my genitals anymore walking in the show, but I can do a tug on my belt like Michael Jackson.
Okay.
All right?
First of all, if we ever get bigger, I think that's some, there's not a lot of people that can handle that at home. We might get banned. We might get banned for.
Well, I don't think ESPN would pick me up, but if they did, they'd make a lot of money.
You and Mad Dog.
Coming to you live from their new studio in San Antonio, Texas. It's the Slobberknocker Sports Podcast. Now here are your hosts, Dylan and Turner.
All right, welcome into the Slobberknocker Sports Podcast, episode number 13. We are back here a little bit later than normal due to the Christmas holidays, but we're here. We're going to be talking NFL. We're going to be talking college football. We are going to be giving away that jersey. We'll pick the winner today or tomorrow, and I'll have a short video that posts the winner on there, and we'll go ahead and send that out soon. So, thank you guys for joining us. We're going to jump right into some NFL, and we'll start with a quick recap, but we'll dive into some more things, ramifications with this game, and we'll talk about what we saw transpire on Christmas night with the San Francisco 49ers and the Baltimore Ravens. I think a lot of people, and this is an overreaction league, we saw the Niners early in the year. Everybody thought they were the best team. They go out, have the 3-game losing streak. Everybody thinks they're in big trouble, and now they've looked like the most dominating team since then. I think we both agreed that they were the best team going in. They look like a totally different football team on Christmas night. That's the plain, simple fact of it. And it starts with Brock Purdy. Now, I'll give my quick take, and you tell me what you think. But to me, this is less about the Ravens. Everybody wanted to talk about the Ravens, and this is the Ravens being better than the 49ers and how good Lamar is. To me, this is basically the facts. Number one, Brock Purdy cost them the game. 4 interceptions. You're not going to win when your quarterback throws 4 interceptions. It's not going to happen, ever. You're never going to win. He was 18 for 32 for 255 yards, no touchdowns, 4 picks. His QBR was 8. He was horrible in the game. You couldn't have been worse than he was.
I think your dad could put up a QBR of at least 10.
I think I would say 5.5 maybe, but I think 10's a bit of a stretch, but he definitely could get close to 8. Considering 0 is the lowest you could go. Could he put up a positive one in reality? I don't think so. That'd be pretty hard. That would be a good thing for us to test out. I don't even think he could put up a QBR of 5 in like a Pee-wee game, like him running around with a bunch of little kids stiff-arming him.
He would definitely try it.
That should be one of our skits.
Just fucking stiff-arming little kids, bouncing off them. He'd pop his Achilles first quarter, battle through it.
Oh, I'd pay to see that a lot of money. But Purdy looked like Chris Leak in the game. It was bad. And here's my issue with what happened. I think Kyle Shanahan went into a room with his OC and with his assistant coaches, and they put on the film of Baltimore's defense, and they said, these guys are not very good. They watched Matthew Stafford carve them up, is what they watched in one of the recent games. This is an offense similar to Shanahan's system. And I think he thought we can throw the ball. The first drive, they did not attempt to run to Christian McCaffrey. Purdy should not be throwing the ball 32 times. He didn't even play in the fourth quarter for the majority of the time. They threw the ball way too much. They put the ball in Brock Purdy's hands. The one drive McCaffrey was given handoff after handoff. They went right down the field and they scored a touchdown. And even after the first 2 picks, the game wasn't out of hand. It was 16-12 at halftime. San Francisco got the ball to start the second half. I thought, in all honesty, I put a second half bet down on them. I thought, this is the better team. Shanahan will get back to running the ball. Nope. Went right back to throwing it. Purdy, he threw 3 more passes that could have been intercepted. It could have been 5 or 6 picks in reality. But I guess my question to you is, are the Niners in trouble? Are you worried about the Niners after this? I know we both kind of picked them as our Super Bowl favorite last week. Or do you think that the Ravens are just this good?
I wouldn't say I'm worried about the Niners just because we saw that 3-game stretch in the middle of the year where they just looked horrible. And then they came back and looked like the most dominant team in football in the world the last few weeks. I think that, I think the Ravens are better than most people thought. I think they came in with a good game plan. They got a lot of tips on Brock Purdy's balls, getting their hands up. I know at least two of the picks were a result of, not getting to the quarterback, getting a hand up, getting, a fingertip to it. I saw one awesome play where Kyle Hamilton got absolutely pancaked by Trent Williams. It was awesome. He tried to come in with a blitz. He gets pancaked. Trent Williams slams him. I believe they called a hold on it because it was like a takedown. Then he gets up. The ball's tipped, and he picks it off like 10 yards down the field. And it's like, never give up on plays, one of those like really cool highlights. But, they were just – I think they felt disrespected, like they said, being underdogs, which is, just a classic BS bulletin board material. Right. But whatever, to get yourself up for a game. Lamar played pretty well. Did he throw any interceptions or no?
Yeah, no, he didn't throw any interceptions, but he did take a safety.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's just Lamar. That's just the kind of stuff he does.
Ran
ref
15 yards
tripped
backwards.
him. Yeah, the ref tripped him after he ran 30 yards backwards in the end zone.
That poor official, because, who thinks the guy's going to run backwards 27 yards? Come on.
Yeah. So, when I first saw that, it was funny because, just talk about overreactions. I was like, oh, God, this is going to be a bloodbath. The Niners are going to fucking kill these guys, and they jumped on them. Was it – they got the safety and then a field goal? Was it 5-0?
5-0,
was it? Okay.
And that included a Brock Purdy interception inside the 20.
Yeah. So, here we go. Niners are going to kill them. I'll give all the credit in the world to the Ravens. Played a really good game. Defense looked good. I still think that, I always use the term, 7-game series. Like this, These teams did play a 7-game series for 7 weeks. I think the Niners would get them. I think the Ravens came in with a really good game plan. Give them credit. Purdy didn't play a good game. Lamar took care of the ball better than he did. And that probably when it comes to those matchups with these two teams, it looks like they're closer than everybody thought. And probably whoever protects the ball better wins the game.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I'm surprised they didn't just give the ball to Christian McCaffrey a million times. And, it's weird. Sometimes you come in with a game plan. And to be fair to the Niners and Shanahan, he probably, like you said, saw the tape of the Rams game and was like, he can throw all over these guys. I know they're going to load up the box and play a lot of man coverage. We're going to try to take advantage of that. And they couldn't do it. A lot of good game by the Ravens. So
I think what a lot of people saw that they kind of thought like, oh my gosh, Lamar is so good in this game was, in the second half, they kind of carved up the Niners defense. But if you really look at it, the first half, they didn't have a ton of success. They started with a lot of short fields. There were 2 turnovers, right? They got good field position off of a punt return one time. They scored 1 offensive touchdown in the first half and 3 field goals. So it's not like they were offensive juggernauts. And then, to me, what it felt like is the game got broken open after Purdy kept turning it over, and the defense is like, sitting there like, Jesus Christ, like we're fucking every second we walk off the field, 2 plays later, the fucker's throwing a pick. And it's like they're starting, I think they started on the 10-yard line, inside the 10-yard line on his 4th pick, and maybe inside the 40 on his 3rd pick, and they scored on both those drives. But, how many times did the Ravens go, 75 yards down the field and score a touchdown? I think it was once all game. So it's not like the Ravens offense was moving the ball that well. And I just don't know what the Ravens offense is. And we'll transition into the fact that everybody freaked out and said Lamar Jackson is now the MVP. Dude, if Lamar Jackson wins the MVP, you might as well just throw the award away and just not have it anymore. Because then nothing matters. The games he played don't matter. How about the 3 games Lamar just shit himself against the Steelers in the last, 5 minutes of the game where he fumbled the ball twice? How about Lamar having only 19 passing touchdowns the entire fucking season? These would be the worst numbers an MVP would ever have in the history of the NFL, probably since the 60s.
Yeah.
It's atrocious to think about giving this guy the fucking award because he played good in 1 fucking game.
Well, yeah, he's had we can both agree he's had a solid season. It's fine, but it's not an MVP caliber season.
Not even a top 10 season.
Well, that's the problem with the award, and we've already touched on it, is they just give it to the best quarterback on a team that's – it's like the best quarterback on a team that's going to get the bye. It's crazy. But, I touched on it a little bit, and I told you, I was like, look, if you look at the numbers, Josh Allen's thrown twice the interceptions, but he's has, I think, 16 more total touchdowns than Lamar Jackson. And my whole thing with it is this. If it's actually the most valuable player if you took Josh Allen off the Buffalo Bills, there may be a 4-win team. If you plug in Huntley in that offense, that system offense for the Ravens, I, honest to God, and I might be out of line for saying this, think they're still a playoff team.
100%.
With that defense. I still think they make the playoffs.
Year they were worse defensively last year, and they were worse like with surrounding. They didn't have Zay Flowers. They didn't have healthy wide receivers, and they still went to the playoffs and damn near won a playoff game with Huntley. People overreact to this shit. It's so frustrating. What's crazy to me, though, is that I'm sitting there watching the game, and I was texting. I think I texted you, and I texted one of my other buddies, Sam. I was like, dude, they're literally saying on here that Lamar is going to win the MVP. Like, how ridiculous is this? Like, we're going to have a field day on the podcast, when we get on Wednesday. And then I look at the fucking Vegas odds, and he's a minus 170 favorite. I'm like, what in the fucking
It's just over. This season's just been the class. I actually don't recall a season where, obviously they have to generate talking points for ESPN because, these shows are 5 days a week and it's the same bullshit over and over. So when we talk about it once a week, it's like, okay, well, we're going to talk about the MVP race, whatever. But it's like they have to do this on a daily basis.
Exactly.
And so to me, they're just making these headlines like, oh, Lamar, now since Lamar won this head-to-head matchup with Purdy, he has to be the MVP. It's ridiculous. It's just, if Lamar goes out and throws 4 interceptions this week, and then you see Josh Allen throw 4 touchdowns, it'll be, well, at this point, how can we not give it to Josh Allen? And it's just, even though it's 1 week of football, it's crazy how we've come to this. But I think it's just a direct, indirect correlation with the fact that you have these talk shows 5 days a week, and they have to find something to talk about. It's the Cowboys, as always. Now Lamar's MVP because Brock Purdy threw 4 picks. But, I saw someone tweet, too. It was like, okay, we have to get rid of it. We have to stop calling it the MVP if we're going to give it to a quarterback. Because this year, the two leading candidates should absolutely be McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill.
Right. It's not even debatable. 100%.
And now with Tyreek missing, a time, you would think, what was McCaffrey's stat line this game? I assume
it wasn't fantastic.
He scored
one touchdown. He scored 1 touchdown.
He still probably had 100 total yards, right? Or close to it?
Close to it. I think he had like 80 scrimmage yards and a touchdown.
Yeah,
he didn't touch the ball much.
Yeah. He had that one great drive and then not a lot after that. So
I know he had like 50 yards in that drive. But yeah, it's just funny because it just seems to me like He ran for 103 yards, 14 carries for 103 yards.
It's like, he didn't do anything. Well, he got it before time. We got 103 yards, and a touchdown. I just don't. To me, especially when you see Lamar's stats, I get it because this is what the award has become, right? It's become quarterback on a team that's going to get the ball. Mahomes is out of it now. He's been losing games, whatever. The Bills are maybe barely going to squeak into the playoffs if they get in there. But it's getting to the point where it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, he's got 1,400 yards rushing. He's running almost 5.5 yards per carry, which is up there in tops in the NFL for guys who are leading rushers. He's at 14 rushing touchdowns.
What is his receiving yards per game? What is he getting receiving?
Roughly 45.
Yeah,
40.
so he's almost you get 45 receiving yards a game.
Roughly 90 rushing, so he's getting close to 130 scrimmage yards a game and averaging basically a touchdown and a half a game. He scored 21 touchdowns in 14 games.
To me, this year, that's more impressive than Lamar's. Now, don't get me wrong. If Lamar was putting up the numbers that he did in his MVP season and they had this record, then of course he should win MVP.
Right.
But the numbers are just not there.
They're not. And he hasn't it's just like, okay, well, the team is winning games. Let's give it to this guy. Come on, man.
Yep.
And I just hate how they just build that narrative and they're going to give it to a guy who doesn't deserve it. It's frustrating. But that's why the NFL has become just kind of a joke in terms of these awards. It just doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. But it is going to be interesting how that plays out with the 49ers now. They looked like they had the number 1 seed locked up. I still think I would be surprised to see them lose one of their last 2 games. Also, the Eagles, with how they've looked lately, could easily drop a game.
And they hold the tiebreaker.
They hold the tiebreaker on the Eagles, so they just have to.
Are they still a game up or no?
They're same in the loss column. Each team is 11-4 now. That game made them even because the Eagles escaped the Giants late. But staying in the NFC for a second with the 49ers, we'll talk a little bit about the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, we saw this happen on Christmas Eve, where the Cowboys took on the Dolphins. I know everybody wants to build the narrative that Dallas and Miami hadn't beaten a team where I think Dallas had one win over a team with a winning record. But the reality is actually Dallas beat Seattle when they had a winning record. And now they didn't have a winning record going into last game. Now they do. So those numbers change, throughout the course of a season.
Yeah, constantly.
So, Dallas technically does have 2 wins against teams with a winning record. The Dolphins, on the other hand, I will say, we've both thought this. It's not like, it's some, gimmick narrative. The Dolphins just don't play well against physical teams, against good teams. Dallas is a pretty good, pretty physical team. Miami, didn't look all that impressive to me. I mean, I know they won the game. They were at home. Dallas is coming off a really bad loss. What are the Cowboys on the road?
Notoriously bad on the road.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. So it's like, what is it really that impressive of a win for Miami here?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't watch a ton of the game, but even looking at both defenses played, I would say, fairly well against good offenses. But no, I thought that this game, I think we talked about it last week, was going to be like a field goal either way. I thought the Cowboys could win it, just being the more physical team. Their road struggles continue. I mean, they just can't figure it out. But this hasn't changed my opinion on Miami at all. Winning on a last-second field goal against a bad road Cowboys team. If they would have came into Dallas and did that, of course, because no one really beats the Cowboys in Dallas, but everybody beats the Cowboys when they're on the road. So ridiculous. I don't think anything really changed really with either of those teams. It just, basically cements that Dallas is not going to win the division, and then they're going to be a wild card team.
They're going to be a wild card team, and unfortunately, with how bad they've been on the road, I don't know what they do in the playoffs. Like, in all seriousness, I'm a Dallas fan. I want them to do well, obviously, but the fact of the matter is they go into a Tampa Bay team's house against Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans, who are playing some really pretty good football right now. I'm not so sure the Cowboys win the game in the first round, which is probably who they're going to be matched up against. I mean, it could still play out a multitude of ways, but it looks like that's the most likely outcome is Dallas going to Tampa Bay, 5-4. Despite Dallas is going to have 2 or 3 more wins than Tampa Bay. They're going to travel on the road to Tampa. I know in my heart of hearts that the Cowboys are not winning 3 road games. There's a 0% chance they're going to the Super Bowl. 0. Which 3 weeks ago, I thought maybe. When they beat Philadelphia, I thought, I don't think it's a great shot, but I think that you could make an argument for them over any other team besides San Francisco in the NFC. There's a chance they get the number 2 seed.
At that time, for sure. I thought the same thing.
But here's my one issue, and I know you said you didn't watch a ton of the game, but Dan Quinn, man, the last couple weeks has been horrible. And this is what bothers me so much. We both know this. Tua is a fucking joke under pressure. I mean, he crumbles. You get any type of pressure on the guy, I'm not even talking like a quarterback hurry, just like relatively close to the guy where he feels like the pocket's collapsing. He will throw the ball early. He'll throw the ball inaccurate. He did it many times in the game against Dallas. Dan Quinn refused to blitz despite the fact that 4-man pressures were not getting home all game long. And on the final drive, it's like, okay, essentially, I think they got the ball back with 3 minutes. Dallas was up by 2 or up by 1, so Miami needed a field goal to win the game. At that point, that's to me, especially once they get to like the 50-yard line, I'm going to be uber aggressive because it's like, okay, if I do get home and get a sack, we might end the game right here. If I don't and they score, at least we get the ball back. And what he did was bring 4 every time, let them get a first down on 3rd and short every single time, and run the clock down and kick a fucking 29-yard field goal and win the game. That was ridiculous to me. He won't change what he does. It's so frustrating as a Cowboys fan to watch this, where it's like, okay, and yes, they're right. Micah Parsons gets held on every fucking play.
He does. It's funny.
It's crazy. And I've been saying
the fact that they haven't thrown one is, like I was reading that stat, like it's been weeks since they've thrown a flag. Did they throw one in the Dolphins game or no?
Nope.
Yeah, I don't understand because every time I'm watching, I think he literally wrote something on Twitter, was like, hey, look, I don't know what I did, but free me, please. I need to be freed because this is ridiculous. And it's like a picture of like him being double teamed and one guy like inside his shoulder pad holding him and another guy holding his jersey. So
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Jerry Jones even commented on it. Like, I don't know if it was last week or like today, that it was like, got to figure it out because it's unfair to him. He's like such a good player, and sure, he draws double teams, this and that and the other. But listen, if that guy's not getting held,
and it's not
he's getting sacks.
It's not just him. The Cowboys have DeMarcus Lawrence, who's really, really good too. I know Hankins didn't play in the Miami game, but they've got a very good D-line. They, I believe, sacked Tua one time, and there was 0 holding called from the Dolphins. The Dolphins had 4 starting offensive linemen out. How in the fucking world is there not a hold on them? But there was a couple really big holds made on the Cowboys, and I know you can call me a conspiracy theorist or whatever. The NFL, to me, has a prerogative in these games.
Yeah,
How is Dallas? And I know the argument is, well, why wouldn't the NFL want Dallas to win? I don't fucking know. I can't explain that one. I have no fucking answer for you on that. But I can tell you this. Dallas got held probably 15 to 20 times in that game. 10 of them were egregious. One of them was on the final drive that allowed them to run the clock out and kick the game-winning field goal. Had it been called, Dallas gets the ball back with 1:30 to go, needing a field goal. Huge missed call. It was on Deron Bland. He got I think it was on Deron Bland. It was him or Lewis, number 33. Got taken down like a fucking wrestler. I mean, just fucking take down city. Just tackled and nothing. They were looking right at it.
So Dan Quinn didn't bring a lot of blitzes. He just tried to bring for him?
Zero.
That's weird.
0
Yeah,
blitzes.
I would definitely bring blitzes and just honestly try to hit Tua early on.
If
you hit him early on, even
yes.
And I'm not saying take like an egregious penalty. I'm not a cheap shot guy, but even if you're a step late and it's 1 15-yard penalty and it's nothing that's just too egregious, but just let him know you're coming. That just changes the whole game. It really does. He does not like getting hit, and I don't blame him because he's probably seen the replays. The T-Rex arms, like I called it last time, wasn't good. But I think the Cowboys. Like I said, this game to me changes nothing. I expected it to be settled by a field goal one way or the other. Now, if one of these teams would have blown each other out, then you're like, okay, but no. Game was basically played to a draw. Give credit to Miami, I guess, for going down there and getting the field goal and winning the game. I'm not a big Cowboys fan, so it doesn't matter to me. But I just it was one of those games whoever had the ball last. But I do agree with you. Defensive coordinators drive me crazy late in games where they're just playing like giving you 5 to 7 yards, and they're like, we're going to make you do this all the way down the field. Well, they're professional football players. They can do it all the way down the field.
Right.
And it's like, you got to come up with a sack or, at least dial one up 1 in every 3 plays to try to, end the game. Because if you get somebody in a long down to distance, you can, win the game instead of relying on an NFL kicker missing a field goal.
Right.
And Sanders had made everything in that game.
He made 3 50-yarders in the first half.
which he's notoriously bad from 50 yards.
Of course.
Which is weird because I remember I always thought of him as a very good kicker, and I always see those stats that he's like 40% from 50 and beyond, and I'm like, that's kind of weird. He's a good kicker.
He's money from anything inside of 50, and he sucks from anything beyond, but this game he nailed every 50-yard kick. Real quick, looking at next week, because the implications for the Dolphins, I think, matter more than the Cowboys. Cowboys are going to be locked into the 5 seed more than likely now. I think there's a path, but it's unlikely. The Dolphins, on the other hand, we've talked about this last week. It's really interesting because the Dolphins travel to Baltimore, right? It's actually a really bad spot, in my opinion, for the Ravens. This is like the high of highs, beating San Francisco in San Francisco on Christmas night. Like, it's going to be very easily a letdown spot for them. But Dolphins off of a big win as well, so it's not like it's a great spot for Miami either. Both teams off of big wins. Now, the game's in Baltimore. Baltimore's playing to kind of lock up that number 1 seed because if Miami wins this game, Miami actually would jump into the number 1 spot because they'd be tied on the loss record and Miami would have the tiebreaker over Baltimore.
Oh, wow.
So this is a massive game, right, for both teams. However, what's interesting is now Miami wins. They're the 1 seed, at least going into the final week. If Miami loses, now not only are they not the 1 seed,
they're playing
but
for
they're
the
playing
division.
for the division, assuming that the Bills beat the Patriots, which I think if we were talking about this last week, we'd say it was a lock. It is in Buffalo. It is a revenge spot, but man, the Bills looked bad again last week. They did not look good in Los Angeles against Easton Stick and company.
My guy, Easton Stick.
Easton Stick was, man, Dicker the kicker was fucking money.
Yeah,
man.
he was. He made everything.
He was 5
I was watching that game with my brother. I was like, man, Dicker's good. He hadn't missed. I think they said he's made like 20 in a row or something now, and those are like even considered not just under 50 yards, like every kick he's made over 50 in a row. But the problem was he was a horrible fantasy kicker, but Staley just went for everything.
And that's why I fucking dropped him, and then I picked up somebody else, and he goes for fucking 28 last week.
Yep.
But, in your opinion, I guess we'll just do kind of a little breakdown. Who has the edge? The Dolphins are a 3.5-point dog in Baltimore. This is the biggest game of the weekend, I think, on any side of conference.
Yeah.
Regardless.
I just think it's a bad, not necessarily. I don't think it's a bad spot for either team. Like you said, essentially both of them are coming off big wins. Obviously, the Ravens is a little bit bigger of a win,
right?
But no, I think the Ravens will end up winning the game at home. I think they'll make Tua uncomfortable early on. He'll probably throw a couple interceptions, and I'll say the Ravens by 10. I think it'll be a fairly comfortable win for him.
I agree. I don't see this game being that close. I mean, we've talked about this all year. The Dolphins just play bad against, this is the definition of a physical fucking team. I mean, this is a fucking smash mouth football team.
And then that'll probably set up the showdown with Dolphins and Buffalo last week of the season.
And that's what we all want to see, I think. I mean, That's what I want to see. I want to see Tua versus Josh Allen in Miami. No excuse. If Tua loses the last two games and ends up being a wild card, like, there's no one else to blame but him. I mean, this team is going to ride on him, and that's why I think they have no shot to win a Super Bowl. But, if they win, if they do somehow pull off that win against Baltimore and they get the 1 seed, they win out and win against Buffalo that last
now, I did see that Buffalo now with that win, I think is in the second wild card spot because so many of those other teams lost. Like all the AFC South teams lost.
It played out really well for them.
Buffalo's a full game. So now Buffalo wins this week, and even if they do lose to Miami, they probably have a pretty good shot at getting in.
I wouldn't say it's a lock by any means, but it's a better shot. So
much better than what it would have been because with all three of those teams losing,
I mean,
you're only for sure going to have 2 AFC South teams get in.
Right. They had the Broncos lost last week, the Bengals lost, the Texans lost, the Colts lost, and the Jaguars lost. So all those teams lost. So it was a perfect storm for them because I think I believe the Bengals played the Steelers. So one of those teams had to win.
Yeah.
And everybody else fucking lost with the exception of the Raiders who kind of are already out.
Who are the Broncos playing this week?
And
I know you said they're benching Wilson, which is wild.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty much out. I think they have a 4% chance to make it because they're 7-8 now. That was their season. Had they won against New England, they would have had, I believe, like a 40% chance, 38% chance to get
probably at least because they held that tiebreaker against Buffalo.
Exactly,
right?
And they have Buffalo playing that last week. So anyway, but when you look at it, it is kind of interesting because I think I mentioned this last week. I still think you're right. I think the Bills now probably get in. But if they lose that last game, even if they win this week against New England and they lose that last game to the Dolphins, they're probably not going to catch the Browns, assuming they have one more loss. The Browns are 10-5 right now. So let's say the Bills finish with 7 losses, 10-7, right? I told you this already. They lose the tiebreaker against essentially everybody in the AFC in the wild card.
Yeah, but don't the Texans and Colts play the last week though? So only one of those teams can win.
Right. So one of those teams. Assuming that they both win this week, Colts have Las Vegas and the Texans have Tennessee. So if those two teams win, that last game kind of probably becomes an elimination game. And then it's going to come down to basically, can the Bengals or the Steelers win out? Because if either of those two teams win out, and that would be the 7th spot, and the Bills lose one game. See, this is my point. They lose one game. There are still a lot of scenarios where they could still miss the playoffs. Now, I would say they're positioned way better now. I would say they're probably 60-70% chance to make it at this point.
Probably.
But
I mean, that game in Miami, to me, even though, like I say, I've been a Bills advocate just because I think the AFC is so bad, and although Josh Allen makes plenty of mistakes, he's also a game breaker in the sense that he could win you a game and he runs the ball all over the place.
He's
so
amazing.
It's like, so to me, I just figure they have a better chance to make noise if they do get in the playoffs. But as far as beating Miami that last week of the season, especially if it's for the division in Miami, I wouldn't make the Bills necessarily a favorite in that game.
Right.
I'd say it's probably Miami 55%, Buffalo 45%, like, slight underdog in the game. But especially with, we touched on it earlier when we were off air, with Stephon Diggs just being basically absent.
Yeah.
I mean, showing up to the game in kilts and much more interested in, his fucking fashion than catching any football. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't fucking care. But I just, wear whatever you want. Like, wear your kilt and then go get 150 fucking yards on 10 catches and a touchdown, and everybody will be like, wearing them in Buffalo.
Yeah, they will.
Jumping through kilts, jumping off pickup trucks on the tables. That'd be a sight to see.
I mean, that was one of the most egregious things I've ever seen. That was pretty awful. They come out and lay an egg like that after showing up with a kilt on. It's pretty bad. But yeah, it's going to be interesting see how the AFC plays out. Quickly, we'll just real quick run through this. I'm real happy the Browns look like I think they're 99% to make the playoffs right now. They're 10-5. It's going to be almost impossible.
Joe Flacco and the boys,
dude. And I know every time I text you something like this, it flips the other way. So I hope I don't jinx it. But who wants to play the Browns right now in the playoffs, dude? They look fucking good. They have the number 1 defense still in the league. They're going to play probably a team who they're going to be a favorite against in the first round because they're likely going to be the 5 seed, and they're going to play the winner of that AFC South, which is going to be Jacksonville or Indianapolis or Houston. The Browns, to me, are 3 points better even on the road against any of those teams. I don't know what the line will probably be closer to 2 or a pick 'em, but to me, I would make the Browns a 3-point favorite against anyone in the AFC South, regardless of where you're playing. Can they make some noise in the playoffs? I think they can. I think they have.
Like I said, it's the AFC, man. I mean, I couldn't necessarily see them. Now, it could be a good game. I don't necessarily think they would go into Baltimore and win, but they could play them tough. Like you said, any of those AFC South teams right now, you'd probably think the Browns are going to beat them no matter where they play.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if they would be 3-point favorites, but
I
know you're saying you would make.
Right.
I definitely think they could, win a game. I don't know if they can win 2 games, but I would say they could definitely win a game in the playoffs. So defense looks good. Flacco looks tremendous off the couch.
Crazy.
Throwing good deep balls, and that's what he's always been able to do. And, protects the ball pretty well. So
yeah.
That's like we said, we get into the what ifs, but if they had Chubb, then you'd be like, oh, maybe they could win the AFC with Joe Flacco playing quarterback.
I still actually, oddly enough, this could be a hot take. I actually think they have a shot to win the AFC. I just don't believe in Baltimore. Plus, you play a divisional rival in the playoffs, anything can happen. And to me, that's the only team that they're clear-cut worse than. I don't think I think they're better than Miami. I think that they could beat Miami.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that's a hot take at all.
Yeah.
I kind of agree. That's why I say that about the Bills, because I'm just like, well, the AFC kind of stinks,
right.
And they look bad. I know you don't like Sean McDermott. I don't either. But I do like the one thing that Joe Brady has done, although the play calling's been weird because he's been running it so much, it's now you kind of have to honor that playing them. When before you would just, they would throw it 75% of the time. So now they are running a little bit more. I don't know if it's, makes them that much more productive, but it at least keeps defenses honest, especially in the playoffs. The team that I was going to say, and I think we both agree on this and have been saying it for the last couple weeks, where I'm like, man, I wouldn't want to play them. The Rams,
okay, I'm glad you brought that
I think
up.
The Rams could beat just about anybody in the NFL right now. I wouldn't want to play anybody. Stafford looks good, looks healthy. Puka and Cooper Kupp. Defense is playing well enough. That team, Kyron Williams, besides him dropping the ball all the time and fumbling, looks good. I think they could, like I said, I wouldn't want to play them.
Dude, listen to some of these stats. So, Stafford's absolutely fucking slinging it around right now. He's aging with absolute grace. The last 4 games, he's throwing for just under 300 a game, 10 touchdowns, no picks, 8 yards per pass. His QBR is the last 4 games, 82, 75, 89, 91.
And that's with them running the ball quite a bit, too. He's just hitting some big plays.
Kyron Williams. Since Kyron Williams took over as the starter, he's averaging 130 yards per game on the ground. 4 touchdowns, 5 yards per carry. They have the 2. Tell me there's a better wide receiver core in the league. There's not in the top 2 with Puka and Cooper Kupp. They've combined for 720 yards and 5 touchdowns the last 4 weeks. There's nobody better offensively right now, in my opinion. Nobody's playing better than the Rams. And like you said, the defense has done enough. To say what you want, they still have Aaron Donald up front. They still have a pretty good scheme. They can do enough. I think whoever they play in the first round, they will upset. Because I don't think the Lions or the Eagles are playing very good football, and that's who they're going to match up with.
How many games ahead of the Cowboys of the Rams?
They can't catch the Cowboys. There are 3.
Oh, because the Cowboys have the head-to-head.
And there's 2. There are 2 games behind them. 7 losses to 5
Talk about a turnaround. Everybody was talking about McVay being in the booth next year, taking the money, done coaching. Cowboys beat the shit out of them earlier in the year, and now you're just like, I think they might beat the Cowboys if they played again.
They probably would beat the Cowboys, depending on where the game would be.
It was a neutral foot. In Dallas, you'd still think the Cowboys would probably beat them. But, the Rams look real good.
That I know we touched on it last week, but real quick, just looking at the NFC, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. So Rams sit 8-7 in that 6 spot. Dallas has already clinched the 5 at least. So that 5 spot will be Dallas or Philly. More than likely it'll be Dallas, right? Rams are 8-7. Seahawks are 8-7, but the Rams beat the Seahawks head-to-head both times, so they hold the tiebreaker. Seattle, massive game this week. And tell me what you think on this one, because so essentially here's the standings, right? We have Rams 8-7. They hold the tiebreaker over pretty much everybody. Seahawks 8-7. They don't hold the tiebreaker over the Rams, but they do have a game over the Vikings, who are 7-8 in 8th, the Packers, who are 7-8 in 9th, the Saints, who are 7-8 in 10th, and the Falcons, who are 7-8 in 11th. And the Saints play the Bucs this week, and the Packers play the Vikings this week. So there's 2 huge matchups going on. On the other hand, the Rams get the Giants. So the Rams win this week. I think you can pretty much lock them into a playoff spot.
Yeah.
But if Seattle loses, all hell breaks loose.
Well, Seattle's playing Pittsburgh, right?
At
so
home.
I mean, that's pretty much
elimination game.
Elimination game.
Just
yeah.
cross conference.
Well, you know what? I mean, if he gets to win, right? If Tomlin gets to win, he can't finish with a losing record again, right?
Yeah, that's
greatest coach in sports history. That's what some are saying.
I'm really.
Those are what people say. Not me. Not me.
I'm going to root for the Seahawks, and I fucking hate Pete Carroll. I really do.
I love Pete. That slimy motherfucker.
I mean,
chewing on his gum over there.
Right now, they have the Seahawks has a 70% chance to make the playoffs. That's because they have a very easy matchup in the final week. But
who did they play last week?
I believe they play the
Arizona. Yeah,
Arizona.
Makes sense. Because it's usually a divisional opponent.
Yeah. I think it's Arizona. So, do you think Seattle sneaks? Gets that?
Yeah, I think
spot?
they're going to get in.
Yeah. You think they'll beat Pittsburgh this week?
I mean, and they should. But, I mean, the Steelers are just, the Steelers are probably going to come back down to earth, you would think. Yeah, I think the Seahawks get in.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. But real quick, let's jump into a few game previews of next week. We have a Saturday game that got flexed, I guess. Maybe it didn't. I thought I could have sworn I saw a thing that said the Cowboys and the Lions are playing on Monday night, but I guess you mentioned to me that that's the night of New Year's Day, which is the college football playoff. Obviously, they don't want to have a Cowboys game on the night of a Longhorns matchup versus the Huskies in that college football playoff. But this game's on Saturday nonetheless. Maybe it was Saturday all along, and I'm just tripping.
I have no idea.
I could have sworn it was on. I saw a preview that said Monday Night Football. Maybe because it's on ESPN, they just called it Monday Night Football. Anyway.
Oh, that's probably what it is.
That probably is.
Monday Night Football on Saturday. Yeah, that's what they're doing. Yeah.
Right. But we look at this matchup. Dallas comes in undefeated at home, 7-0. They're playing this one in Arlington at AT&T Stadium against the 11-4 Lions, who have been pretty good on the road this season. But we mentioned earlier how everybody says that the Cowboys can't beat good teams. But when you look at the Lions actually only have 2 wins all season against teams with winning records. And one of those came week 1 by 1 point against Kansas City when they didn't have Travis Kelce and they didn't have Chris Jones, arguably their 2 best players on each side of the ball. So the only other win they have over a team with a winning record was against the Buccaneers in week 6. And they won that game 20-6 in Tampa Bay. Besides that, here are the teams they've beaten. The Falcons, the Packers, the Panthers, the Raiders, the Chargers, the Saints, the Broncos, and the Vikings. So they really haven't beaten anyone. The one time they stepped up real big in class, they played Baltimore in Baltimore. They lost 38-6. And that's not even encapsulating what we've seen the last 5 weeks. And it leaves me asking, basically, okay, what are the Lions, right? Like early in the year, what I thought they were is they're an offensive juggernaut. They move the ball extremely well, maybe better than any other team. The defense does enough. They're uber aggressive. Dan Campbell has this aggressive mentality. They go for it on 4th down, right? And they put teams in uncomfortable positions. But that momentum has stymied significantly. And now we look at them. They have the Cowboys this final week. I know they won against the Vikings last week, but this is crazy, dude, when I was looking at this. And yes, I did bet on the Vikings in this game, plus 3.5. But Nick Mullins threw 4 picks. The Vikings turned the ball over 4 times, and yet they still had a drive to win the game at the end. The Vikings outgained the Lions by 2.5 yards per play. Significantly dominated the Lions in this game, and 4 turnovers is the reason they lost. What to you are the Lions? They've lost to the Bears. They've lost to the Packers at home. They should have lost to the Vikings last week. Now they play a Cowboys team in Dallas. Like, I don't understand what the Lions are at this point.
They're a divisional winner. That's not a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just kind of what they are. They're, and listen, Lions fans are thrilled.
Yeah.
This is their first division win since, I don't know.
30 years, 1993.
There you go. So, I mean, it's been a long time, so they're very thankful for Dan Campbell. And I think if you talk to most of them, I don't think they would tell you they could win the Super Bowl this year. I think most of them are somewhat realistic. They're happy with the division, not a very good division this year. A lot of people's sexy pick at the beginning of the year was the Bears to win that division.
Right.
They've been horrible. I think the Cowboys, you're going to see the Cowboys win this game from anywhere from, I'm going to say 10 to 17 points.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of those, I think.
I
I
think
think they play so much better at home. I think they're going to get to Goff. I think he throws an interception or two. The only worry I have is, you look at the Cowboys defense against Buffalo and how Buffalo ran it on them, and I think the Lions are going to try. That's what they are going to try to do. You're going to see a lot of screens to Gibbs, a lot of running with Montgomery, a lot of short, quick passes from Goff to kind of neutralize the pass rush. But I do think the Cowboys ultimately win this by 10 to 17. They've just been a juggernaut at home.
Right. And I mean, they didn't. It's not like the Lions had an offensive outburst last week. They averaged just 5.1 yards per
What
play.
is the Cowboys average win at home? It's got to be by 14 points or more.
At least. I mean,
it's like, I know they beat the Rams by 20 something, right?
Yeah, they beat the Giants by a ton, the Patriots by a ton,
the Commanders by a ton.
I
think they on
Jets.
average win by at least 14 plus at home,
at
probably 17.
The only relatively, even the Eagles, they beat the Eagles by 20 at home.
That's
33 to 13.
It might be, yeah.
The only relatively close game they had at home, I believe, was against Seattle that Thursday night that we watched together. Remember, it was like a shootout, and Dallas had to come from behind.
Oh, yeah.
That was the only
Thursday
game
night game.
Them being close. But yeah, so I agree. I mean, I don't see the line is 6 for a reason, right? We're basically saying that Dallas is a 3-point favorite on a neutral field. It's funny because you look at the line last week where the line actually closed between the Vikings and the Lions at 3. So you're saying those two teams are pretty much the same on a neutral field. I mean, the Lions are maybe like a short favorite on a neutral field. I actually would agree with that. I don't, obviously the quarterback position is Nick Mullins is not very good, but I don't think Jared Goff's been great lately whatsoever. And he's not turning the ball over as much the last few games, but he's just not been the same guy that we've seen early on because he's a product of scheme. I mean, that's what it is. He's never been very good. He does turn the ball all over a lot historically. And I think you're right. I like Dallas to win this game relatively easily. I think they win by 14 at home. And I think the Lions also, think about the emotion they've had this week, right? Winning the division for the first time in 30 years. And now you have to go on the road and you basically are locked into you're going to be either the 2 or the 3 seed. And
it's kind of a meaningless game.
It is a meaningless game.
In theory, it kind of is for Dallas, too, I guess, at this point. I mean, I know that, but I just think that Dallas is going to be looking to get back on the right track, especially after 2 losses.
You don't want to go 3 straight losses into the playoffs, even though they have that game against the Commanders the final week. All right, we'll move on. We got a special guest coming in. As always, we have to do the segment where the villain of the show himself comes in. It's a Christmas miracle that he's here today. He made some time for us. He says he's only going to do 4 minutes on the show today. We'll see if
4 minutes, and he's got quite the get up on as always. Welcome in, Big Dog.
Come on, let's go.
Fucking got to make that De Niro.
I can't do the full grab.
Oh yeah, I forgot. We gotta get your New Year's resolution.
First off, I'm divulging my fucking what is it called? Resolutions.
Resolutions.
My brain's flying right now. I got 50 deals going on. Next week, Monday, I have a special jacket being made for Monday. Number 1.
We talked about this.
Are fucking sick. But anyway, I'm going to curse. I'm going to do one resolution at a time, not to grab my genitals anymore walking in the show, but I can do a tug on my belt like Michael Jackson.
Okay.
All right?
I mean, first of all, if we ever get bigger, I think that's some, there's not a lot of people that can handle that at home. We might get banned. We might get banned for.
Well, I don't think ESPN would pick me up, but if they did, they'd make a lot of money.
You and Mad Dog.
The second one is to stop using the F word as much because I want to try to build sponsorship for the show, and I can go get it because at Tejas Records, we were the most endorsed company I had. I didn't pay for my phone, my booze. At the time I drank, I haven't been drinking in 22 years. My booze, my gas, my clothing, any products that we use. We didn't pay for food. We didn't pay for anything. That's how endorsed we were. And that wasn't just me. It was my staff as well.
Miller Lite?
free everything. Gallo wine, Miller Lite delivered to my door. Tejas Records was so I'll bring in some sponsors. I got to clean my act up a little bit. All right, now
I think we can all agree on that.
and next Monday, I'm going to think of my resolutions besides the F word. And that's a tough one for me. But and I will say this, back to this quick rant. I will let Erin Andrews, and I don't think she's good looking, but I would let her broadcast the game. She's paid her dues.
Okay.
That girl has put her dues in. And that's
what about
it.
Samantha Ponder? She's been doing it for a long time.
No, Samantha Ponder. No, not at all. Not at all. No, she's pretty not bad though. She's not that bad. She's not that bad. Hannah Storm any day.
What about Michelle Beadle?
Yeah, Michelle's paid her dues. I'll take Michelle. Michelle can do it. She gets a rain check.
So we're backtracking on women in sports?
No. The rest of these women, even this morning, are just a joke. Get them off the damn air. And ESPN, and I want to say this, reverse discrimination. Think about it. They're testing, this is my quick rant. The ESPN tests it and says that guys, they say we have equal opportunity, we're Disney. They bring the girls in. Then they test the guys who say, well, we want to see girls just because they look good. So think about it, girls. You're just on there because you have some knowledge, you get fed it in your ear, and you're good looking. That defeats the purpose. So ESPN is hypocritical. They're bringing them in because they bring ratings up because if they're blondes or whatever, the guys look at them, but they're not taking them that seriously. Goodness gracious, what a corporate nightmare. Now, give me one pick. Give me one pick because I'm on fire right now.
That's your only rant?
Yeah,
my other rant's going to be on Monday.
Are you going to bring your... I
think a special custom-made jacket.
Cadillac back.
The Sears Cadillac. Catalog.
You better
the Sears catalog. I'm bringing out. I have it at the house.
Okay.
The 1971.
With everything circled. You
72.
Wanted.
So that's
your mother ruined Christmas.
Ruined
Christmas.
Grinch.
So next week, that's what we'll do. We'll get the Sears catalog, and he'll go through and pick what he's going to buy for the studio.
Well, I already
for the
circled
next year.
them. I already circled all the. Well, it's 1971. So
By the way, what did you buy yourself for Christmas? Because you let everybody know last week.
I bought myself
yourself a lot of shit.
Expensive as hell ring, a couple of jackets being made, some pants, some jewelry.
I mean, those pants are definitely custom tailored. There's no doubt about those.
Absolutely. Got my girls. And
you got the
way,
same tailor as Conor McGregor. This guy.
And also, thank you. And also, this is it. The fact is that I, with this jacket, employed 17 kids in a third world country. So I don't want to hear shit about my sensitivity for Christmas.
Okay.
All right?
Seems fair to me.
Real quick, before we do go on to some picks, I just have to, on the podcast, I've got to talk about this, and that is how embarrassing my dad's quarterbacks were this week, Turner. Let's go through
give
them.
it a rest.
Let's go through them real quick. Jalen Hurts, he sucked. He shit himself before halftime and was tackled in bounds, cost him a field goal.
That was kind of stupid.
That was really stupid. Then he threw what I've heard multiple people call the worst pick six in the history of football.
You got about 2 more minutes.
Let's go. There's a lot of quarterbacks on the list.
There we go. Hold on. All right. Tommy DeVito sucks so bad he got pulled. Tommy DeVito sucks so bad he got pulled. Tyrod Taylor is now the starter. Sam Howell, 6 of 21, 2 picks, pulled for Jacoby Brissett. They come all the way back and almost win the game. Sam Howell's no longer the starter in Washington.
Wait till I respond to this
Russell Wilson loses at home to Bailey Zappi. Season over. Russell Wilson benched today.
No, he's only benched. I got the scoop on why he's benched. Don't go there. You don't know the scoop.
Quiet. They're trading him.
No, they don't want him to get hurt because they have a physical they have to pass in March. They don't want him using the excuse. He wanted out as well. Him and his wife went out because of the escapade on the sidelines, and they don't want him. They have a $32 million payout they have to give him if he flunks any kind of physical in March. They don't want him hurt.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Go ahead.
Brock Purdy.
Who did I pick? Who did I say they're going to go get when you and Turner were watching the last two games that he admits Raiders quarterback last year? That guy's pretty good. They kept showing his girlfriend, the blonde girl in the booth. I kept saying, that guy's pretty good. And Sean Payton goes out and gives that guy a big-ass contract. I can pick quarterbacks.
Jared Stidham's one of your boys
when I was watching him.
I like it.
And I said, why are they keep showing his girlfriend the last two games? He did really well the last game or two in the Raiders last year.
Okay, let me keep going. Brock Purdy, 4 picks, pulled for Sam Darnold.
MVP candidate.
Trevor Lawrence, 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions, lost by 30 to Baker Mayfield.
Injured shoulder and hamstring.
Aiden O'Connell, 9 of 21, 62 yards. Hey, did not set the record.
I'm going to defend all this real quick.
Set the record for consecutive incompletions in a game for the Raiders.
Keep going.
And if it could get worse, he also is the Kyler Murray fan who has now won one game. And he denies this, Turner, but he was a big Sam Darnold supporter who came in and threw a pick in the game as well.
Okay, number one, Sam Darnold, like we saw him opening night when he played for the Jets in Vegas at the Bitz Hotel that I like to stay at.
Planet Hollywood?
No, the big one, Big Red Rock. Ed Red Rock said the guy can't play. He played good that game and never could ever pass that. Number one. Number two, he's in the NFL. I picked him at the USC after seeing 3 throws. Number three, everyone you name is in the NFL. Everyone you name is playing in the NFL. Think how stupid his dad watches him on the practice squad, watches him in the preseason,
None of
and
those
says,
guys were on the
this
practice
guy
squad.
can play. This guy can play. I didn't say they're going to light up the NFL. O'Connell, where did the guy come from? I asked you, where is he from?
He got drafted.
Guy can throw.
Got
Guy can
drafted.
throw the ball. He's starting for the Raiders. Slam dunk. Championship.
Hey, Turner,
Championship.
real
Let me
quick.
finish.
No, no,
Let me
no.
finish.
Before you finish,
Stats.
Let me finish.
Before
Russell
you
Wilson,
finish,
Super
can I-
Bowl quarterback, 2 Super Bowls.
One
Being
Super
in
Bowl,
the
and he
pan.
didn't win
Bacon tastes
MVP.
good. Food, shoe in the mouth. Leather tastes good with bacon on it. Okay, now let's keep going. What's the other guy?
Hold on, real quick.
Now name him.
Before I go.
Jalen Hurts. He was 13-3 last year. Whatever. 14-4 this year. Who cares? Going to the Super Bowl, outplayed everybody in the Super Bowl, and they changed coordinator, staff, every coach, and every key player on the offensive line. No, sorry. He's not playing good. Doesn't matter. I watched him come in for what was his name? Carson Wentz.
Who you loved as well.
And said,
oh, I forgot. You're a big Carson Wentz
the
guy.
Cowboys should have drafted him.
Were you a big Carson
Number
Wentz
one.
guy?
So, no, not that. No.
Oh, you weren't?
No, I said Carson Wentz is playing really, really well. I never watched him in Wyoming, where the hell he's from. But my point to you is this. No, these are guys that I've watched in preseason. What's the last guy? I'll make this quick. What's the other guy?
Sammy.
Sam.
Hal.
All I said in
Sammy.
front of Turner last year when he came in for whoever got injured back there in that dump truck that's Washington is that kid can throw the ball, and his arm, he is a really good thrower. In fact, Greg Cosell, who you know nothing about, who's one of the top prognosticators and breaks down every piece of film, said the guy throws the ball perfectly. It's just his offensive line is horrendous. Let me finish. And the play calls that they have him make are play calls that he didn't do with the Chiefs coordinator. What's his name? Ed Bieniemy? Is his name?
Eric. Yeah,
Eric
close
Bieniemy.
enough, yeah.
Okay. That he's going downfield, taking all these time to make the routes. We're not giving the kid anticipation throws, is what he's good at. So listen to Cosell and learn a lot about these quarterbacks, okay? But let me
shout
I have
out,
picked
shout out,
everyone.
Cosell. I doubt that's even your name. Mr. Leak may have
Cosell,
gotten it
no,
wrong.
Greg
It's
Cosell.
Greg
I
Cosell.
watch him on Colin all the time.
All right,
He's the
shout out,
number
Greg.
one breakdown guy of film. He's the smartest guy.
What do you have to say about
anything.
Travis Kelce and Mahomes? What's going on there?
No, I didn't say anything about that. He breaks down just.
No,
Colin-
he's talking
asking
about
you.
Oh,
Your boy
what's that now?
Mahomes, what's been going on?
Mahomes is fine. He's fine. He's just his wife's probably giving him some trouble. That nightmare and that brother. I mean, if I had to live in that situation, I'd be throwing the ball out of bounds and down the street and everything I could.
What's wrong with his brother?
His brother's just messed up in the head, man. But the point is this: though.
Actually committed sexual assault.
And
Oh,
thank
that's
you.
right, he
Assault,
did.
brother.
Thank you.
He
Thank
did.
you. In my days. So my point is this. My point is I pick
We need a mute
I
button.
pick quarterbacks accordingly to say they can play. So if I say that guy could play in the NFL, he's got a good arm. That's what it is. The funniest one is O'Donnell while we're watching preseason. I don't know why you were there that day. And I said, that's going to be your new boy. And just to think, he started every game for the Raiders.
Can I finish? Can I?
Oh, that's right.
Hold on.
They started Jimmy one game and then benched him and put the kid back in. A kid I saw play
It's your boy.
Yeah.
in preseason. So just let me go scout for your team. I guarantee you, I will bring you back a star.
Man, that was embarrassing. I'm glad you got to embarrass yourself there. I just love Turner. I was telling him last night, it was so funny how every one of the guys he picks, he picks them when they're already on an NFL team. Then he says they're an NFL quarterback, if they play in an NFL game, that's enough for him. He got it right. If they play in one game,
I said that guy could start in an NFL team, and I've told you the guys that can't. I never said Heineke can start, but he did. I just said, that guy's got a good. They got to keep him in there. I never said he could start on an NFL team. He's a franchise quarterback, but I've named
Your
every
dad
one.
does coach. Your dad does call a lot of basketball stars.
Thank you.
Our boy John L. at FAU.
Thank
They're
you.
playing pretty good ball right now.
They
Number
are.
7.
Turner,
He's
how
gonna
about
go.
the backup?
Yep.
How about that backup center from Providence that he said was going to the league?
Hey, we don't know. He might be going.
No, he's working at a construction company now.
No, he's not. No, he's not. He's going to the league. All right, let's
Straight
get on
to
to
the
the
league.
next part. The last part that I can be here today, because I got to, like I said, I'm employing children right now as they're speaking in third world countries. Let's go.
Well, I'm not sure what you want to do. You want to pick some games?
Yes,
I'll pick one.
Let's just
Hold
go
on,
through
let's
our
look at the
NFL
clock.
games.
Oh, I got to roll.
and then we'll do.
Yeah,
Go.
I'm sure you do.
No, I'm serious. I got to go.
He's got to get a blanco.
NFL picks. All right. Jets at the Browns on Thursday night.
Browns done.
Brownies.
Go.
Brownies. Okay, I'll take the Browns. We're not picking by how many?
No,
All right.
I don't want to do the spreads crap.
It's not the spreads. We're just picking how much they win.
Go.
Lions at the Cowboys.
Cowboys should win that game.
Cowboys by double digits. No.
Yeah,
By 3.
Cowboys by double digits
By
as
3.
well.
Go next one. 3
Patriots
points.
at the Bills. Huge
Bet your
game for
house
the
on that.
Bills.
What's
He
that?
said bet your
Bet your
house.
house.
Yeah, on the Cowboys winning by 3. Go ahead. What's that?
Patriots at the Bills.
Don't even. That's just a dumb one.
Bills.
Bills.
Yeah, go ahead.
Falcons at the Bears.
Dumb game. Who cares? No one wants to watch that. So why even announcing it?
Because it's
Bears.
a game.
The Bears.
Bears. Go.
Bears barely. Raiders at the Colts.
Raiders have to win out for him to keep his job. Going to be a damn
I
good
don't
game.
think that's true.
They're going to win. The Raiders are going to win
I
the
think they're going
last
to
2
keep
games.
Antonio Pierce regardless.
Colts by 3. I think they're keeping.
They shouldn't
Pierce.
keep him.
They're going to.
No, they should not.
He's done a good job.
No.
Colts, I like the Colts in that one, although I don't think they're very good. The Raiders
else?
defense is playing much better. That'll be a close game. I'll tell you, I'll take the Raiders, actually. I
Go
like
ahead.
the Raiders. In
Go
that
ahead. Go ahead.
one. Rams at the Giants. Tommy DeVito benched for Tyrod Taylor, like we said.
I didn't say Tommy DeVito's a starting quarterback.
Go ahead.
I said the guy can play, and he played 5 games
Go
and
ahead.
won 3.
Go ahead.
Okay. Rams. Went out.
Rams.
They went out. Go.
Rams by 21.
Hurry up.
Cardinals at the Eagles. Eagles win, and they're in great
Eagles.
position.
Eagles. Jalen will be fine.
Black Tom. BTB.
BTB.
Shout out
Black Tom,
BTB.
Black Tom Brady.
Poor Jalen.
Keep
I'll
going.
take the Eagles. They're calling for Marcus Mariota in Philadelphia.
Yeah, sure.
Saints at the Buccaneers.
I'm going to go. Saints at the Bucks.
Bucks by 7.
I'm going to go. Breaker's full of his head. I'm going to go Saints.
There's no way the Saints win. Dennis
Saints.
Allen needs to. I'm not a guy who calls for firing of
Saints.
coaches, but Dennis Allen needs
You
to
need,
go.
you need to go last year. I already said
You're
that.
not a guy that calls for coaches to be fired.
No, what I'm
Who
saying-
the hell are you talking about? You've been calling for Sean McDermott's head since
Okay,
week
hold on.
5.
Let me repeat that.
Doug Peterson's the worst coach and needs to
Okay,
be fired.
let me clarify.
What the fuck are
I'm
you
not
talking about?
calling for coaches in the first 2 years of their coaching stint to be fired normally. I think coaches who have been there forever who suck should go, like Sean McDermott. This guy has only been there 2 years, but I think he's a person who's pretty bad. And I think it's time
All right.
for him to go. 49ers at the Commanders.
Niners.
Yeah, and who's starting quarterback for the Commanders? Jacoby Brissett. Give me the Niners.
Yeah,
by
who
2
cares?
They're just resting Sammy
Yeah.
for next year.
Now, I normally probably would skip this one, but Trevor's played so bad he may not even play.
He's not
the
playing. He's
Panthers
injured.
at the Jaguars. No, he's not. He might play. They say
No, Jaguars will win the game.
Who's
but
the backup for the Jags?
it's C.J. Beathard.
yeah, he's fine.
Shit, dude. The Panthers didn't look bad this week.
I know.
No,
I'm gonna take the Jags because I have to. My prediction last week is they're gonna hold on to the division. I said
you
it's
have
gonna
a
be
house-
ugly, but I got the Jags.
By the way, 2
If you
weeks
have
in
a
a row,
house
y'all
in-
picked against me, and I picked against the Jags, and I won. Both
Well, listen,
weeks.
if you
And I'm
have
going
a-
to pick against them again. Give me the Panthers.
I think the Panthers might beat
if
them. Honestly,
you have
but
a
I'm gonna stick with them.
house in Jacksonville, Florida, and Trevor plays, put your deed of the house up for a bet on that game.
Oh my god!
All right.
You were a big reason why the housing market crashed, sir.
Okay.
Titans at the Texans. Massive game for the Texans. I'm assuming Stroud's back. I don't know for sure.
Texas by 7.
Yeah, Texans.
Texans, but it will be close.
God, what a bad week of football. Keep going.
Steelers at the Seahawks. Basically an elimination game here.
Yeah, Steelers are going to lose that game.
Give me Geno and the boys.
Mike Tomlin made a deal with the devil, and he's going to find a way to win the game.
No, he will not.
Yes, he's going to.
Go ahead.
Steelers are going to win the game somehow, some way. Chargers at the Broncos. Broncos season pretty much over. They have a 4% chance to make the playoffs.
They're starting your boy, right?
Jared Stidham is starting. Russell Wilson out. Benched. Bum.
Stidham.
Chargers by a field goal.
In Mile High. Give me
Stidham.
first week after a coach gets fired, things go well. Second week they come back down to earth. Give me the Broncos in a tight one.
It's true.
ahead.
Bengals at the Chiefs. Bengals have to win
No.
to stay in the
They're
hunt
not
for the
winning
playoffs.
that game. Chiefs.
Chiefs look so bad. I'll take them to win by a field goal.
Yeah, it's going to be real tight. Chiefs, yeah, barely. Last game. This is essentially an elimination game in the NFC. The Green Bay Packers, 7-8, taking on the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. Both 7-8. Loser will likely be eliminated. Vikings
Packers.
a short favorite.
Packers.
Vikings by a field goal.
Yeah, Vikings will win that one.
All right, so that's it for this week. Next week, I'll load up. I'll give you a lot of good shit next week.
We heard that here. He can't go out early next week. He's got to stay on for 45 minutes next week.
Yeah, that's true. You just said it.
Next week, I have some special
You're
announcements.
going to
make.
Blanco already? It's Wednesday, dude.
Yeah, I'm going to come back tomorrow, though.
Oh.
We don't call it Blanco. We call
Watch
it
out. Watch out. You just
don't
knocked
call
the
it
whole thing
Blanco.
over, dumbass.
No.
You just ruined the
We
whole...
call it the ranch.
Okay, sorry.
You just knocked over the
The
whole...
Yellowstone
I
Ranch.
can't gyrate.
Those pants are too. No, you can gyrate now because it's not the end of the year yet.
Knock Trevor over. Oh, God. I'm glad he's out of the room already. All right, well, I'll move on to college football. We did a preview of the college football playoff early on when the playoff was initially announced, but we're only 5 days away. Next Monday, January the 1st, New Year's Day, is going to be the college football semifinals. The last 4-team playoff semifinals that we will have, as next year we're moving to a 12-team playoff. And we've got arguably what I think is going to be the best two matchups we've had in the college football playoff in a long time. The number 1 team, Michigan, taking on the number 4 team, Alabama. That's where we'll start. And Michigan comes in as a short favorite, 2 points. This line is kind of bumped around. I know we're not going to talk about the betting aspect of it too much, but we've seen a lot of public support for Alabama, and I think the narrative is what drives that, which is it's Nick Saban, it's extra prep time, right? It's Alabama who's been here before. Michigan, on the other hand, has been in this game 2 years in a row. They looked horrible. They were crushed the first year. Last year, you could argue they probably overlooked TCU because, it looked once Michigan got going offensively like they kind of did whatever they wanted, but defensively they couldn't get a stop against that TCU team who really wasn't that great. But what do you think? How do you think this game is going to transpire? Is Michigan going to finally get over the hump and win this game and get to the national title, or is the narrative right and Alabama is going to win with that extra prep time for Saban and all the weapons?
I mean, all year I've said that I thought Michigan was the best team in the country. They looked like it to me, the way they run the ball. The defense looked very good. Can't really hold anything against them. I mean, they played a fairly good game against Ohio State at home and won that. How bad did they beat Iowa? Was that game? I can't remember when they played.
In the Big the Big Ten
shut them out, or what did they
in the
do?
Big Ten championship game? I believe they beat them. It was like 26-0.
Okay, something like that.
Yeah.
Typical. It's just so hard for me, and I really do think Michigan's the better team, but I just think that the mental aspect of it plays a huge part in Michigan just knowing they've been in the spot 2 years. And Alabama's never looking past Michigan because they know they're undefeated and they're really good. So it's not like, oh, we're going to waltz in here and beat them. They certainly don't think that. So the Michigan's going to get their best shot. And it's just, I don't know if they can get over the mental hump of getting through this game.
Yeah.
I honestly think they're the better team. But if I had to pick it, I'm just going to stick to it because I think I said this the first time, I'd take Alabama by a field goal. I think it's going to be a really good game. I don't think anybody's – I would be surprised if either team got blown out. I know Michigan has. They get blown out that one time they played, Georgia 2 years ago, right?
Different team.
Yeah, different team. I really do think Michigan's a better team on paper. I don't really trust Milroe, but I think those receivers for Alabama, and I touched on it before, Bond and the guy that I like so much. What's his name? Who's the other receiver? Bond and
Burton.
They're just great playmakers, and I think maybe they make a play or two. Maybe Milroe, one with his feet. He probably will throw an interception in the game, but I think I'm gonna stick with it and say Alabama by 3. I don't know.
I'm going to disagree. I think Michigan's going to win this game, and I think they're going to win it by double digits. I think they're actually the far better team. I've watched actually a lot of film of both teams the last couple of weeks. I've done some deep dives on both teams. When you look at just the basic schedule of each team, I know Michigan didn't play maybe the schedule that Alabama did in the Big Ten, obviously, but I just can't look past some of these outcomes. I mentioned this when we broke down the game early. I know the Texas game was early in the year, but they got pretty much thoroughly dominated in that game. It was not that. I know they took the lead late at one point. Texas quickly bounced back and won, took a 2-score lead, and then essentially I think they got the ball back with about 6 or 5 minutes to go, ran down Alabama's throat, which you just don't see happen in Tuscaloosa, won the game. They struggled. I know they didn't have they started the backup quarterback, but they struggled with South Florida, only won that game by 14 the following week. They really didn't dominate Ole Miss after that 24-10 victory. Then they barely beat Texas A&M on the road a couple weeks later. And again, Milroe doesn't look that good. They struggle at home and need a late fourth down conversion to beat Arkansas at home. And then you fast forward, LSU. I know when Daniels went out, Alabama was leading in the game, but I really think that game was going to come down to the wire. They were not able to stop LSU that entire game. You go, obviously, the Auburn game is, everybody knows about that, right? They should have lost the game. I mean, they lose that game, they're not in the playoffs.
Yep.
And then they beat Georgia by 3. But here's the thing that Georgia did, and when you look at it, it's what Alabama struggles with. Georgia defensively, who I think Georgia was really down defensively this year, they forced Alabama to throw intermediate passes. And that is what Jalen Milroe does extremely poorly. He has a good deep ball, and he throws a lot of short passes to his receivers and gets them in space. Makes sense, right? Got a good arm, got great playmakers. That's what you want to do. But the reality is, when he has to make the reads and he has to make multiple reads, it's not going to happen. Georgia put a spy on him and really limited him in the run game. That's what Michigan's going to do. And here's the difference in the game, in my opinion. The defensive line of Michigan versus the offensive line of Alabama. The offensive line of Alabama has really struggled to protect Milroe throughout the season. He has not, he's basically bailed them out a lot with his elite athleticism. I don't see how you bail out against this Michigan defense. They're too fucking good. I mean, to me, the only way you beat Michigan defensively, from an offensive standpoint against their defense, is being able to really chunk the ball all around the field. And I just don't see Milroe as that type of guy. I think it's a really bad matchup for Alabama. And the more I look at it too, I'm not going to say that I have inside information or anything, but a lot of the sharper shops are dealing 2.5. We're going to leak out to 3 closer to game day, I guarantee you. Number one. Number two, there's been significant sharp money on Michigan. And I know the public sentiment is Alabama, Alabama, Alabama. I'm not fucking buying it. Not buying it one bit. I think this Alabama team is flawed, and I think everybody is just saying, oh my gosh, they beat Georgia. People don't realize that Georgia didn't fucking play a soul all year long. The best team they played all year was Missouri. They have to play them at home. So to me, it's like, okay, who have you beaten this year?
Yeah, but I mean, you could make, and I agree with you. I really do think on paper, Michigan's a better team. Michigan played nobody either.
They did.
Michigan played Ohio State at home and won a game which, like I said, was not near. I mean, they convincingly won the game, but it wasn't a bloodbath. The only thing I will say is Michigan, to me, looked so damn good earlier in the year. They looked great. They're running the ball. Towards the end of the season, they were not getting against, Ohio State and Iowa, who have pretty good run Ds. They were not, you don't see these 30, 40-yard runs that they used to pop off with what's his name before he tore his ACL. Yeah, before he tore his ACL. He's not near as explosive, and I just don't know. Listen, Michigan's, in my opinion, the better, bigger physical team. Alabama's a much faster team. And in the last few matchups that they've had, SEC versus Big Ten, it's gone really bad for the Big Ten.
I agree with you,
every single time.
I would also argue that in the past, the SEC has been the more physical team in those matchups. Like, to me, yeah, they probably do have a slight speed and athlete advantage, which they do have here with their wide receivers. But to me, I don't think it's wild to say Michigan is the more physical team in this matchup. I think they have the better defense, better in the trenches.
I definitely think they're the more physical team. But they're the more physical team against TCU's. Listen, this is a different Michigan team, get it. But they were a more physical team against TCU, and TCU is the faster team last year, and they fucking lost to TCU with Max Duggan as the quarterback.
Again,
I just can't for the life of me look past just how bad they've been in the semifinal games. I mean, it's just impossible to do. It's the same coach, it's the same quarterback as last year. I get that. I do think Michigan's defense is a lot better than they were last year, so maybe that plays into effect. But I also think this Alabama team's they've struggled and they play down to competition. They've done it all year and got very lucky to be in the playoff. But when they are playing their best, they're better than that TCU team last year.
I agree.
So I just don't know. That's why, to me, and we don't talk about the betting aspect really, and I'm retired anyway, but this would just be the classic stay away game for me because I literally have no clue. I'm picking Alabama simply because of past history, and I think that does play in a weird way. You know, they always say you pick the names on the back of the jerseys, not the front of the jerseys, but it has to take somewhat of a mental toll. Like if Alabama comes out and jumps on them 10-0, it's going to be, somehow, don't know if they will, it's going to be, oh, here we go again. We're going to get sloshed. It's not going to be, all right, we're going to come back and win this game. It's just, I just feel like if Alabama can come out and get them down, that will happen. I do 100% agree with you that I actually weirdly think Michigan is a more physical team. They're the better team on paper. You got to remember, these kids are making, NIL money, millions of dollars. They're kids, man. They're 19, 20-year-old kids. And it's just, sometimes with these kids, you get them down or something doesn't go good at the beginning. In Michigan has not been all year in a position where they've been down.
Yep.
They get up, they win the game, and that's the end of it. So it'll be interesting to see. But like I said, I do agree with your, the deep breakdown. I would agree with you. I think Michigan's the better team. It's just, it'll be super interesting. I'm excited for the game. Like you said, these matchups are fantastic. So
yeah, I do agree with you. I think Michigan probably does need to get a lead early. That's going to help them a lot. But I also would say if Alabama gets in a hole early, are they going to be able to sling the ball around the field and come back against Michigan? I don't think they can.
Yeah, I don't know.
So it's I don't know. I do think that whoever gets up early is going to have a big advantage. I also think it's going to be interesting to see, I find it hard to believe that Alabama is that much better from a talent perspective and an athletic standpoint than Michigan. I think their wide receivers are. I think they have an advantage there. But I look at the skill players for Michigan's defense, and I just think, I don't know. I don't know that they're going to be outclassed speed-wise in this one as much as people think. Maybe you could be right for sure. And you look at that Michigan defense from last year, you did make a good point. But the Michigan defense last year, they were giving up significantly, more points, a lot more yards per play. They were not nearly as good as they were this year.
They're much
they've
better.
Taken a huge
they're
step
much
forward.
better this year.
And then the last factor, and I'll leave it at this for my argument, is I think the biggest factor that has changed, and I know he didn't play all that great in the two big games. They ran the ball a lot, but it came out that he was injured. J.J. McCarthy, over the course of the season, has been significantly better this year than he was last year. And so I think if you get in a position where it's okay, we need to drive late to win this game. Last year, I don't know that I would have been they have, I really trust him. I actually think he'll make some big plays. He's thrown 4 interceptions the entire year. And I think in the last 10 games, he's thrown just 1. That includes both games against Ohio State and Penn State, who have pretty good defenses. So it's to me, he uses his legs really well when he needs to. He's got a good arm. He's made really good decisions. I always see, it's probably a cliche, but as somebody who practices mindfulness, I always see him meditating before the game. He sits behind the goalpost like this and it just seems like he does have that next play mentality this year where it's he doesn't care what his stats are. He doesn't care if he, makes a mistake. He's just going to do what's necessary to win the game, and he's not afraid of the moment. He makes big-time plays. He went into Penn State into Happy Valley, and he won the game. Played against Ohio State in the game that essentially they know if they lose, that's a playoff game to me, right? They treated that as a playoff game without their head coach. He stepped up and made some big plays late for them. I like Michigan in this matchup. I've already bet them. Now, I did take them on the money line. I don't want to mess up the points. I got them at a short money line at -115 earlier in the week. But I would be surprised if this closed below the key number of 3. I think it's going to end up trending to 3. Maybe we'll see some buyback on Alabama when we get to 3, but there's been professional money on Michigan so far. Moving on to the second matchup. Again, I think both these matchups, you can make a case for both teams. I think we're more likely to make the same case, or the case for the same team on this one, at least basing it on what we said in the initial matchup. But Texas taking on Washington. Obviously, Washington, undefeated Pac-12 champions. Texas, one loss came against Oklahoma, but they arguably have the best win on the season going to Tuscaloosa.
The only thing that may have changed since talking about it originally a couple episodes back.
Michigan.
Oh, no.
You picked
I
Alabama?
picked Alabama. I said close game,
Gotcha,
and it was basically the same rhetoric. But as far as this game, is Worthy playing or no? Is he fine?
I believe
because that's what we didn't know. When we talked about it before, it's I still thought Texas, but you would assume, because I know you said earlier to me that the line had moved in Texas' favor, you would assume Worthy is playing.
Yeah, my understanding is he hasn't had any significant setbacks, and I don't know that he's going to be 100%, but he's going to play.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we're both agreeing here that we think Texas is going to win the game. Another interesting matchup. Texas defense has been great. Washington's defense solid. I obviously it would be nice if Texas running back didn't get hurt.
Yeah,
obviously, but
that hurts.
The kid, is it Baxter that's filled in?
CJ Baxter.
He's done a good job. So I think Texas wins this game. I don't expect a blowout in this game though, either. I mean, I think maybe Texas by 7, something like that. If Quinn plays a pretty clean game, I think Texas might be able to maybe force him into a couple big mistakes. We'll see.
To me, this comes down to a couple things. Like, one, I think you're right that it won't be a blowout in the sense that if Texas gets a big lead, they're notorious for letting teams creep back.
Yeah.
So, because to me, the one way this does turn into a blowout is Texas. I don't think Washington can blow Texas out. I just don't think they're physical enough defensively to just consistently stop Texas's offense. I do think that if Washington gets rolling offensively, because to me, Washington is very similar stylistically to what Oklahoma did to Texas, which is push the ball downfield, lots of tempo. And Texas, for stretches of that game, were good defensively. But then when they really picked up the tempo late in the half and late in the game, they struggled to stop them. So
I think Oklahoma definitely, I agree with you somewhat, but Oklahoma obviously goes way faster than Washington typically.
True.
Well, from what I've seen lately, I think Washington, I don't know necessarily why, early in the year was just going NASCAR, they call it NASCAR, million miles an hour. Then when they played Oregon, and depending on the matchup, it seems like they kind of toned that down. I mean, They were not going fast against Oregon.
Yeah.
So I think depending on, and I don't necessarily think they're going to, unless they think that that's what gives them a stylistic advantage, I don't think you're going to see them going a million miles an hour against Texas. Just because, the danger, say Texas has a big drive, go down and score, and then you go 3 and out, going, your defense is right back on the field a minute later.
Right.
So I think, I expect them to be a little bit more of the tempo of they were when they played the Ducks in that Pac-12 championship game. I don't think they're going to go super, super fast. Although I think it would actually benefit them to do so.
It would.
I think they should do that. I just have a feeling they're not going to. Typically, they get, these coaches, for whatever reason, get away. There's certain schools like Oregon or Texas Tech with Leach. It didn't matter. That's who they were. They're going to do that.
Right.
But I mean, think about that game when they played Washington State, man. I mean, that offense just looked terrible.
Terrible.
They didn't do anything.
Dude, and you look at the second half of the season, right? Pretty much going through the Oregon game, they were averaging over 40 points a game. After that, I mean, it scored 15 against Arizona State in a game that I believe they had a pick 6 in that one. They scored one offensive touchdown.
That's what I mean. They're such a weird team.
Against Oregon State in that game in Corvallis, they scored 22. Against Washington State, they scored 24. So they've had a really, and Penix hasn't looked like the same guy since. I don't think it's health. I've not been high on Michael Penix, and I'm going to catch some heat for this because the first time we posted this, a lot of UW fans commented and did not like our take on Washington. But look, the truth of the matter is, Penix has not been very accurate in the last 5 to 6 games, right? He played a really good game in the Pac-12 championship game. He stepped up. I think we both agreed, Oregon was a bit overrated. And that's kind of their defense, struggled against Texas Tech early in the year when they played them. They didn't play a lot of competition. But to me, this game kind of comes down to 2 things. One, I agree with you on the tempo. If Washington plays, and I understand the logic of it, right? That defense for Washington, it got better when they started slowing it down. Because when they sped it up, they couldn't stop a soul. And when they started playing more deliberate, the problem is I think there's a huge mismatch with Texas offense versus Washington's defense. And I think Texas is going to score a lot of points. Maybe that will help Washington in the sense that it'll force them into playing faster. Because if this gets into a shootout, anything can happen. But if you try to play slow against Texas's defense, that's not going to work. That's when they're at their best. When you give T'Vondre Sweat and all those guys on the defensive line time and they're rested to rush the passer, good fucking luck. The time Texas has struggled, like I've said, it's been in quick tempo situations. What happened to them and why were they dropped so far in the rankings? Because they would get up on these teams, like it happened against TCU, it happened against Kansas State that we were watching together, it happened against Houston, and the opponent is forced to go into a high-tempo, fast-paced offense, and the defense gets burnt out because they're on the field, because Texas does the same thing. They play fast-paced. They have quick possessions, and the defense gets tired. If you're looking at it from a pure talent standpoint, there's mismatches all over the field for Texas. Yeah, Washington's got some really good receivers. They're not going to be able to throw the ball consistently unless they go fast-paced. They're not going to be able to run the ball at all. Texas' run defense is arguably the best in the country. So it's going to be on the arm of Michael Penix. It's going to be on whether or not they make use tempo. And then I think on the other side of the ball, the key matchup is, can they slow down Texas' run game and make them one-dimensional? Because I don't see a path for Washington slowing down Worthy and Baxter out of the backfield, and Jatavion Sanders, who's arguably the second best tight end and going to be an NFL top draft pick. Like, there's just too much talent. A.D. Mitchell, Jordan Whittington. They have five-star guys all over the field. Washington has one good cornerback who can cover. I don't see how they slow them down through the air. They need to commit to the run, make them one-dimensional, and force Quinn Ewers to make some mistakes. That's how Washington has a path to victory here.
Yeah, I think they just have to go. The more and more I think about it is they just have to go as fast as they can, like Oklahoma did. Try to win the game that way.
I do think that Kalen DeBoer, from a head coaching standpoint, might have a slight advantage over Sark. I think if you're looking at it from a play calling standpoint, I think Sark maybe is a little bit better.
Sark's a better play caller.
Sark's a very good play caller. When you're looking at it from like decisions from a head coach, like Sark's going to make a big mistake in this game. He just always does. He always makes one bad decision. It's either going to be a fourth down that he shouldn't go for, or it's going to be a thing where he lets, last in the Big 12 championship, he took a delay a game instead of calling a timeout, and it cost him a field goal. Like, he always makes one big mistake. Who's going to make that big mistake? I think Sark will. That's going to keep Washington in the game. I like Texas to win it. It's going to be real, real tight, and I think UT wins by 3. I think literally they're going to win by a game-winning field goal in the last few seconds. I think they'll have a big lead. Washington will storm back. Texas will have a drive at the end and win the game on a field goal, and I think it'll be Texas and Michigan.
Yeah, I'll say Texas by 7.
Yeah.
Something like that.
But I do think we both agree, like, these are probably two of the biggest coin flip matchups we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. Usually you get that 1 versus 4 in the line, it's like 14 points or something. Right. So, which we would have had if it was Florida State and Michigan. And so I'm glad we don't have that.
As a fan, I cannot be upset at this. Although I've had to ask myself, am I being a bit biased, like betting on Michigan here, because I hate Alabama. I really do. But the more I look at it, the more I look at it, like I have no. I'm pretty unbiased when it comes to betting money wise. I will bet on a team that I hate if I think they're going to win. And I really just see the matchup edges with Michigan in that one. And I think Texas has a few advantages themselves. But going to be a fun Monday. I believe the kickoff for the first game is at 4 p.m. our time, Central Standard Time, and I think 7:45 for the Texas game. So, got a great day of college football. We've got some New Year's Six bowls, obviously, lots of opt-outs. I know we're about to get out of here. I want to mention one thing before we get out of here, just because I think this is an important topic to talk about real quick. And we can do it for 5 minutes. But this happened. Trevor Etienne, the running back for Florida, entered the transfer portal. He announced yesterday that he's going to Georgia. This is just, I have to bring this up because it's just a huge issue for me. There is no rules. And we're going to allow, without any coaching changes, right? Like, not like the head coach from Florida left. We're going to allow the star running back and arguably the best offensive player on the team to transfer to a conference rival on their side of the conference. It's just, to me, absolutely absurd that he doesn't have to sit out a year. And Texas, as a Texas fan, I was a beneficiary of it basketball-wise. Tyrese Hunter was on Iowa State, was the freshman of the year in basketball a couple years ago, transfers to Texas in basketball. To me, it's disgusting that we allow this. And the way, like, you're watching like the Florida State Mike Dorvell, they go undefeated. They get left out of the college football playoff. He's got to do an Orange Bowl press conference that day. 2 hours later, the motherfucker's on a plane flying to recruit dudes because he's having players poached left and right off his roster in the middle of bowl season. Like, it's just become the wild, wild west. There's no rules. I've heard multiple coaches in college football saying there's tampering going on.
Well, yeah. My brother, who, I told you knows more about recruiting than anybody on earth, he's just saying that it's a month period now. It needs to be a 2-week window, and it needs to be after bowl season.
Thank you.
There's no reason to be doing this. It's
ridiculous.
Stupid. So then you have these kids opting out of their bowls. So then it's like, why the bowl games become meaningless. So they have to fix that. If you want to make it 30 days, make it 30 days. I think it's stupid.
Yeah.
Because it's too much fucking work. It's
2
like
weeks
free
is
agency.
plenty.
2 weeks is plenty to make your decision, and it has to be after bowl season. And then that way you'll actually probably play in your bowl game at least 60% more of the kids, probably 50%, whatever. But yeah, you gotta in conference transferring, you have to sit out a year.
You have to sit out a year. You have to.
It's crazy how in the NCAA we've gone from more rules than anything on earth to no rules in 5 years.
It's crazy. And you think
literally, it's like, okay, well, now there's NIL. It's like, okay, guys are just taking shopping bags full of money and fucking cars. And then you can be like, oh, yeah, Florida's star running back. Hey, you want to come play at Georgia? Sure. You don't have to sit out here. Here's a fucking Camaro. It's fucking insane, man.
Unbelievable, dude.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They gotta figure it out. I mean, they can do it with a few simple changes. But if you want to transfer in conference, you got to sit out a year. You can't have that. You can't have like my biggest. Oh, you're a running back. You're just gonna go to your biggest rival. I mean, these kids have no allegiance anymore. No loyalty to anybody. And listen, I don't necessarily blame the kids. They just got to fix the rules.
Right.
If you're an 18, 19-year-old kid and they're like, hey, we'll give you an extra $300,000 a year in a car, you're going to jump to go to the better team in Georgia. But you have to fix that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's the adults in the room. The NCAA has got to figure out a way to fix it. And they don't care as long as they're getting their fucking money.
That's all they care about.
That's all they care about.
That's all they care about. It's absolutely ridiculous. And here's the ridiculous thing, too. If you enter the portal, it's like, okay, now that school doesn't have to take you back at that point. And so if you enter the transfer portal and now all of a sudden you go and try to get a scholarship to go somewhere else and they think you're going to get $500,000 and you're only getting $100,000, you're sitting there, you just win the transfer portal and now you're transferring thinking you're going to get all this money. And really, it's the top 1% that are getting that money. The top, the second DN for Georgia transferring to Texas isn't getting $1 million. It's not happening.
No.
It's very few.
Yeah.
It's the top quarterbacks, a few running backs, maybe some wide receivers, and maybe some edge rushers. That's about fucking it. You're not going to get that type of money. And like we said, in terms of the in-conference thing, to me, the only way you should allow a player to transfer in-conference, I don't even know that this should be a rule at all, but the only way that I think you should be allowed is if your coach leaves. Because I do think if you're going to be like, okay, my head coach recruited me to be here. Now, my head coach is going from Mississippi State in the SEC to Alabama, right? Like they're taking a step up staying in conference. Then why should I not be allowed to leave? That part I would understand. But if you're going to have no coaching change, nothing, why, if you committed to go there? And then the other problem is we have no contracts. Like, at least with the fucking NFL, it's like, okay, you have a 3-year deal. You can't just fucking leave. They have 1 year. Everything's a 1-year deal now. So you're having to recruit the entirety of your freshmen. Then just try to keep your guys in the transfer portal. It's the wild, wild fucking
West.
West.
They're going to eventually have some kind of contracts because they're just going to have to. I mean, it'll happen. But, it's a clusterfuck, so hopefully they clean that up. Yeah. And, I mean, I guess I was thinking about it. Maybe you can't make it after bowl season because the whole concept is, okay, if you're going somewhere else, you have to be in there for the second semester of school starting. That's probably why they have it where they have it. Yeah. That would be my guess. But, I mean, they got to try to fix it somehow.
Move bowl season up a little bit then
or whatever, because and then make it a 2-week period. Yeah, you can move bowl season up or, there's all kinds of stuff you could do. But, yeah, it just sucks because all the kids are, especially for bowls that spend all this money and pay these schools all this money. And then you have kids, like apparently, I don't know for sure, but it's like, Oklahoma and Arizona and the Alamo Bowl, which should be a pretty good matchup. But I know Oklahoma's got, Gabriel's gone. They have a prize recruit, I think, starting at quarterback that's been pretty good. But I think that, I've never seen this before, but you donate $30 at the San Antonio Food Bank and then you get 2 tickets to the game. Because I think they're just, and it's called fill the bowl because I think they're having trouble selling tickets.
That's crazy.
Because these teams don't know, like U of A should have a pretty good showing because they haven't been to a bowl game in a long time.
Right.
And San Antonio is a good spot for a bowl game. But it's crazy that these teams just like, no one really cares. Like Alamo Bowl used to be sold out pretty much all the time, I think, or damn well near.
It was always packed. I used to go to it.
And now, it doesn't seem like anybody cares about these bowl games. And the bowl games are still giving the same amount of money to the school. So it's like,
they're losing the money.
Yeah. So
that's why you're getting so many changes in sponsors for a lot of these games that aren't like the big bowl games. Because even you look at some of the fucking New Year's Six bowls. I mean, look at Florida State and Georgia, all the opt-outs and transfer portal guys who aren't playing in the game. It's a ton. I know this isn't a New Year's Six, but fucking A&M, they have 55 scholarship players on the roster tonight in the game, 30 opt-outs and transfer portals. So it's become out of control. And I agree. Also, you think about that, like I get the second semester thing, but a lot of schools don't start school until like the 15th, 16th, 17th.
yeah,
18th.
you could do it.
You could find a way to do it. I mean, come on, man. Like
make it start on January 1 and go to January 15th,
right.
whatever. You could figure it out.
You could figure it out for sure. And maybe like, okay, if you have a couple schools that start early, if you want to go there, you got to make your decision much quicker. Like, okay, fine. But it's just, to me, like you said, it's just out of control. They're going to have to fix some of this. And I completely agree with what you initially said. I don't like that the bowl games are meaningless. It's fun to watch bowl games. It's fun to watch these kids play in bowl games. You had fucking Minnesota paying a kid $30,000 to just stay on the roster and play in the fucking bowl game.
It's great.
And it was funny on the broadcast, the guys on the broadcast were like, yeah, he decided to come back and PJ Fleck called him and convinced him to stay, and he's going to remember this game forever. And not one mention about of the fact how a booster paid him $30,000 just to play in the fucking game, so he's going to use it to pay for his fucking wedding in a couple of weeks. So
yeah, his girlfriend was the big winner of that game. They just kept showing her talking about her Instagram following.
Yeah, I'm sure she's got a plus 10 to 15,000 followers.
Oh no, it's like 200. Yeah, it was like she's already got like 250,000
going into the game.
Yeah, something like that.
She's probably got like 500 now.
Yeah, something like that.
It
was funny.
That was like one of those. Was it Brent Musburger when he kept talking about AJ McCarron's girlfriend?
Yeah, so I didn't see it, but apparently,
the guy showing her over and over and over.
The guy just kept talking about her. Yeah,
it's like, okay, we get it, we understand, dude. Calm down, buddy. But I guess we'll wrap it up there. It was a good episode. We will be back. Hopefully, I think we're gonna take Monday off and shoot on Tuesday next week. So we'll come back. We'll talk all things for the recap of the college football playoffs. We'll recap Week 17 in the NFL next week, and we'll talk about the final week of the NFL season. We'll have a college football national championship set. We'll have a preview on that game. Plenty of sports topics. We're coming to the end of football season. It's a depressing time, but at the same time, the NBA season and college basketball, more so college basketball, are picking up right now. College basketball is
I love college
great.
basketball. Yeah.
NBA is going to be a stretch here, but we know people like it, so we'll do some NBA stuff on here. So thanks for tuning into this episode. Support the podcast. Please subscribe to our channel. We're up to, I believe, 700 subscribers. If we get to 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to give away another jersey. I know we're going to pick the winner. I was going to do it live here, but we ran out of time, so I'm going to pick it in a short video. And I'm going to throw it out there and announce the winner on a short video today. I'll post that and who got it. So thank you guys for all who commented and liked the video and all those things. And we will be back next week. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time.
Roll Tide.
Oh, man. Hook 'em, baby. Hook 'em. Hook 'em.
Oh, well, I want you to win. I'm excited about the mission.
Give me the Vince Young helmet, baby. Dun, 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 dun.